All right, here we go. So what we are trying to accomplish with this project is recreate that painting. That is an old painting I did. Actually, I think that's one of my first digital efforts way, way back in the day. And I'm going to try to build that here in Blender with the end goal of creating a 3D print of a functioning fountain, sort of like Zen, one of those little Zen garden fountain things that you'd get at the store, I guess, or wherever you buy your Zen garden thingies. Um, so obviously we can't create that vast realistic background. So I'm going to start with a little stand here, and that stand is going to turn into a pool for a reservoir for our water. And I'm kind of all making this up as I go here at this point, feeling it out. I don't know how this is going to play out. Do know I need a pool on the top, so I'm just kind of winging it. In the palm here, we're going to need a place for that water to rise up to and pour down the wrists like it were a waterfall. And setting this all up, we're going to create a channel down the wrists where we can flow and try to direct that water. And within the base or of that sculpt, where the wrists come together, I guess, is I need to create a chamber for the pump. Now these pumps are roughly inch and a half by inch and a half. That box or that chamber that I'm making within that sculpt is probably a little bit bigger. That'll give me some wiggle room. And we're going to try to make this something that you can take apart and maintain that pump if you need to, crack it open or change the speed because these pumps are kind of cool. They got a couple of different speeds on there, a high power, which really fountains it out the top, and a lower power, which is kind of anemic and will barely do what we need to do. So after we get this done, what I ended up having to do was create a alpha version, I guess, right? Or your initial prototype where I tried that pump out and the settings and it ended up working out perfect, and we'll see that in a little bit after we get this sculpt worked out. So some of the challenges we're working out that initial waterway that would lead to the palm and fill up that top little reservoir for the waterfall because I wasn't sure what the diameter should be or if the pump would be strong enough to push it up there, but it ended up working out fantastic. And purely by luck, I should say. But the port for the pump where the water comes out of, I just kind of guesstimated the size here that I was going to need for that. And I do end up bridging like a gap between the pump and the actual plastic from the 3D print with these little hoses that they came with. And we'll see that going forward. The hoses couple the pump outgoing port to the this water channel leading up. And it works out quite nice. You could just kind of smush that little plastic pipe in there and you could cut the length that you needed. And I think at this point when I was building this, I was going a little bonkers staring at the vertexes and not knowing what I was doing with the displacements and if I was looking at the right level of modifier or if I had it shut off right because it looked like it was broken or something. All right, so once we get this attached, all our vertexes are merged correctly, we need to try to make sure that channel does not poke through the sides of that sculpt because we're going to actually have an interior and exterior. And there we are with our subdivision and our displacement on there, trying to create like a craggy rock look. I could keep playing around with that forever to mess with different rock looks, but that is when I settle down for the time being. All right, so there is our central channel. We can kind of see it ghosted through the middle of our wireframe, and I want to make it so there's no horizontal travel or minimize any kind of horizontal travel if we can, because when this prints, I don't want any support material clogging up that pipe or having to figure out how that would play out on the slicer. So best not to deal with the topic at all if we can avoid it. There we go. So that is going to be our water shunt up to the top. Alrighty. And we got our chamber in the bottom, and I'm going to work out some other fastener sort of chambers later, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Here we are with the prototype version, and we got our hole in the palm, and in the bottom, our base, there's our chamber for the pump. We're already kind of got a length of test hose in there, and this is where I'm seeing what is going to happen for the first time and how this is going to work out. This is just a little pie plate, probably roughly equivalent to the size of the final printed piece, and there we go. We got our water coming out, so we know moving forward that we can go with this plan. So here's our bowl.
All right, these are the little tracks. Just a close-up of that, how that slides into place. Let me see what we got there. And I just recessed it enough so it would sit in that bowl deep enough, and then hopefully right in here like that. Now these aren't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. As you can see, I still got a lot of that support on the bottom. I couldn't peel it all away, but it still kind of ends up working out. You get that track in there. It's just deep enough. And I did kind of roughly measure it going into it, but for the most part it's all dead reckoning and trial and error and hoping for the best to see how it would play out. And then it slides in here. These recesses will get you started on these tracks, so you push it forward a little bit there, and you're going to slide it back, and it's all by feel. This way. There we go. I had it the wrong way. There's a front side, I guess. There you go. And you can kind of shimmy the left side and the right side onto it, and you can pop it off. All right, now to get our pipe in there, our pump, we have this cavity which is going to hold the pump in there, and our cord is going to come out the back side. But you can see that hole for the channel which is leading up to the top of the fountain. It's kind of got this sort of conical or vortex sort of shape leading up to the center of the pipe, and I did not do any measurement, just crude measurements. Once again, just eyeing it up and seeing how close I could get it to that hole. So these pumps came with all these hoses, or these lengths of hoses, and by trial and error I just kind of grabbed the length of this long, and what I'm going to do is put it in there just far enough so it should sort of complete that length from the pump exit port up that channel, something like that. And I'm going to try to eyeball this up and get that in there. Okay, I think that's in there. Seems like it's in there. And now you can still access that pump if you need to. You can change the speeds. There's a little switch in there for high power, low power, and 2 points in between. Alright, so now this is when we shimmy it on our slide. Put it back together. It's getting easier. It seems like these little rails are wearing down a bit, and it's getting easier to put in there as I do it over and over. Alright, now we are going to try to see this in action. And hopefully I got that pump set up correctly. And that hose is mated into the pump port, so the water flows through. And here we go. Oh wow, that was almost too easy. Alright, there's our little Zen fountain, based off an ancient painting I did a long time ago.